The biggest worry I had, honestly, I didn't want it to feel like these were a bunch of people in Viking costumes doing some sort of stage play. The committed performances that the actors were bringing to the set eased that fear immediately.
Dean, this story is so precious to you. You started with this many years ago.
A decade of my life well spent, and I felt very proud of those movies, but I was ready for new characters and new worlds. And then came this opportunity. Part of it was a protective instinct. When they mentioned it, I thought, well, I know where the heart is, and I have a lot of love for these characters in this world. I would love to be able to preserve what I think fans know and love about this story in live action form.
Marc, producer extraordinaire, you've worked on so many beloved projects. What was it about How to Train Your Dragon that said this is going to be right?
Two things, I think. The first was wanting to work with this wonderful artist because I understood and intuited how deeply personal this great big fantasy was to him underneath it. Second, there was a personal connection for me. And while this is a great, big, robust fairy tale with extraordinary aerial sequences, magnificent creatures, wonderful performances, there is at the center of it a story, I think, very much for our time. The notion that there's a kid who sees the world different and sees a way of communicating in a different way, the metaphor being with dragons, and a father and a culture that sees that communication in a very, very different way.
Bill, the visual experience of this, my jaw's on the floor, it's so immersive. Talk about the conversations you had and how you would approach the cinematography.
My first conversation with Dean is, you made a perfect movie. Now what are we going to do? I don't want to screw this up. But we can't make the same movie. So how do we do this? How do we make people believe that they've seen How to Train Your Dragon, but it can't be exactly the same? In the animated movie, somebody picks somebody up by the lapels and throws them into the next room, or they drop out of the sky into a fight. When you start putting real people in real actions, what are those objective correlatives that are the same? Because it's going to be longer. A real actor has thought behind that. They go through an emotion, and you see it, and they have one level and another level, and it takes time.
Dean, for you in telling, this version, what was important for you that you needed to get right?
The dragons, of course. We wanted the dragons to not only look photorealistic and credible in their movement, but also retain the personalities that made them so different from one another in the animated movies. The biggest worry I had, honestly, it was a secret worry. I didn't want it to feel like these were a bunch of people in Viking costumes doing a stage play. I was afraid that Gerard Butler might walk onto set looking like Gerard Butler in a fake beard. But the confidence in the framing of the shots, in the lighting of the shots, the set design itself, the meticulous craft with which everything was built, the committed performances that the actors were bringing to the set eased that fear immediately. Because after the first day, we watched the dailies play back, and I just felt like, oh, okay, this is great. This doesn't feel like it's struggling to find itself. It feels like a confident movie.
One thing that makes this movie work for so many people, the touch that Hiccup and Toothless has that first time. Talk about how that came together, and can we just give a round of applause to Mason, who is so great in this film?
The biggest lesson learned for me was the magic that happens when you're shooting. Similar to animation, like there's a lot of preparation that goes into it. The one thing that I wasn't quite prepared for was giving up the control that you have in animation, where we manipulate everything, even the dialogue that's given by the actors. We can cut it up and make our own Frankenstein version. In this case, and Bill was always by my side advising me to do this, we would set it up, we would figure out the blocking, we would walk the actors through it, and then he said, now you hand it off. Now we stay nimble and we pivot, and we'll move lights and camera if we have to, but we're looking for truth. And that was very educational to me, because it's as a director, you have to let go now and trust the actors, trust the casting, know that they know their characters better than you do at that point, and then just watch the alchemy take place. And as they figure out their cadence and rhythm and offer up, ideas and things that might not have been on the page, and there's truth that emerges. And if you are prepared enough and you have a plan, then you can pivot toward those surprises. Day one, Bill just said, now forget the 300 people on either side of the camera and just watch for the truth. I'll always remember that, because I think we found plenty of it.
Bill, I want to talk to you a little bit about some of those flying sequences because my jaw dropped. I saw it in IMAX.
We had the world's greatest storyboards, which is the first movie, and it was daunting. And there are certain things that we tried to improve on. We tried to, when you interject realism into it, you actually have to see them struggle. You have to see their veins pop out and their muscles pop out. We don't believe that it's almost impossible to film this thing. It's almost impossible for the camera to keep up with them. Nobody's going to buy it. Audiences have seen every trick in the world. But at the same time, you got to hit these notes that people recognize. One of the things that Dean said, he's got to put his hand on that dragon's nose. It's like, if we don't do that, people are going to get up and walk out. We were really true to the movie on that part.
What does it mean to see the film being received by, audiences and people loving it, crying and telling everyone, oh my God, this is just so great?
I'm very proud of the animated movies and the crew that made them. So the intention here was not to try to replace the animated movie, but to do something that lived up to its wish fulfillment and its spirit and its emotion. And the fact that audiences seem to be responding to that is wonderful. Even though I think we all knew, we talked about it from the beginning, that critically this is always going to be a bit polarizing because we had to pick a lane, and the lane we picked was a faithful retelling with additions where we could squeeze them in. And so you hear a bit of that too in the talkback, but for the most part it does seem like it's playing as we hoped with audiences, and they're coming out with big smiles on their faces and passing the word around, and that's all you can really hope for. Create something that transports people, that paints a world you want to live in for a while, characters you want to spend time with, and at the end make you feel like you had a roller coaster of an emotion. And that's the kind of movie I remember growing up in the 70s and 80s, and I'm glad that we can continue that tradition.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for giving us How to Train Your Dragon, and thank you again. Congratulations on it all. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you all for
Yeah.
coming out.